Hey folks, it's Mike Shea from SlyFlourish.com here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy DM Prep. I almost forgot the name of my own show. This is a weekly show broadcast live 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Times. Check the hair. 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Times on Sundays, in which I go through steps from Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my weekly D&D game. In this case, I am running the adventure Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Right now, we are at I think we jumped to chapter 8, which is the Styes, but I have skipped chapter 7. So we're going to be talking about chapter 8, the Styes. And my mom is here. Hello, Mom. This show is brought to you by the fine backers of Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/SlyFlourish, you too can be a backer of the Sly Flourish Patreon page, in which you get a monthly newsletter that's just to Patreon backers, but also you are helping to support this show. For example, over the past week, I have reached 1990s level of technology and created a newsletter. So an email newsletter. So if you would like to subscribe to Sly Flourish and receive a weekly Sly Flourish article to your email inbox, you can now do so. Let's see if I'll show that off. If you go over to Sly Flourish, no, that's not right. Sly Flourish, and you go to newsletter right here. You get a sign up for it. There's a picture of Esmeralda the Lich. Add your email address, and you will start receiving the Sly Flourish article to your inbox email right away. I'll stick that right in the Twitch chat too, and we'll put that in our show notes so that you too can subscribe to the newsletter. Let's see. Patreon newsletter. What else? Any other news? Not really. So last week in our game, oops, that's a spoiler. Last week in our game, the characters were at the estate of Mr. Dory. Mr. Dory is the head of the cult of Tharizdun in the Styes, and also a member of the Scarlet Brotherhood. He is the head of the Scarlet Brotherhood on the southern shores of the sea. And he was mad as a bag of hammers, crazy as mad as a hatter. I don't know. He was crazy. And he particularly lost it when he found out that one of the characters was carrying a weapon blessed by Tharizdun or touched by Tharizdun. And he, so they had a big fight. They killed Mr. Dory. That was easy. And then I began the session with one of Mr. Dory's deep scions ringing a bell up above, and the party was split up because one of the characters who can fly was up above. That we had a couple of characters that had one player was a substitute, and he was outside of the manor, and another one hadn't been there in a few weeks, so she was outside the manor as well. They all sort of came to the manor. The bell is ringing, and I think about 40-ish minions of Mr. Dory, a mixture of thugs and what are they called? Sea Spawn, started crawling their way out of the muck or coming out of the buildings, and they all rushed Mr. Dory's place, and there was a huge battle at Mr. Dory's place. And I was excited for that to be my strong start, and it was a strong start, and it worked well. And I queried the players afterwards on whether or not they felt like it was a drag or anything like that, and they did not, but they said, man, watching you do like all that crazy math in your head was almost painful to watch, though. And the reason that it was painful is I made a big mistake, and this is a good lesson for today's show. I am a huge fan of running lots of monsters against the characters. I think it's a lot of fun. I think that, if you think about the Crazy 88 scene from Kill Bill, or The Matrix, when they're fighting dozens and dozens of guys at the same time, hundreds of guys. So I think it's lots of fun to throw lots of low power monsters, low challenge monsters at your higher level characters. It can be a really fun fight. But then, how do you run it, right, is the question. And the Lazy Dungeon Master's Workbook has a section in here where we talk about running large numbers of monsters. Let's see, I think it's on page 3 here, running large numbers of monsters, right? So Here's how to figure out attacks. Here's how to figure out saving throws. Here's a whole thing about pooling hit points. All of this works well. You can figure out you figure out what the attack would be. So if you have 5 guys that are attacking your paladin has an AC of 18. It takes for every 5 monsters that attacks, one of them is going to hit, right? If you assume that they need to roll an 18 or better. If they need to roll 14 or better, 1 out of 3 do it. So an easier method for me is just assume a quarter of them do it, right? If you just assume that, generally speaking, a quarter of the monsters will either attack or make a saving throw, you're pretty close to right. You'll be off by 1 or 2, and if somebody has like real heavy armor, you might just say, okay, it's fewer than that, or I'm going to round it down. But generally speaking, if you say like 10 guys are attacking you, I'm going to assume a quarter of them hit. I'll either round up if they're light armor, I'll round down if they're heavy armor. So maybe only 2 of them hit if they're heavy armor, or maybe 3 of them hit if they're light. And that's a real easy thing to do in your head. You don't have to do any math. You don't have to look at any table. You just say a quarter of them hit and then round up or down depending on the circumstances. Very simple. And the same with saving throws. If they are hit by a fireball, let's say you hit 12 guys with a fireball, how many of those 12 guys are going to make their saving throw? You figure a quarter of them, which is 4, 8, 12, 6, no, 3, right? 3, 6, 9, 12. 3 of them will succeed in their save. The rest of them, 9 of them will fail on their saving throw. And likely a fireball hitting a bunch of minions is going to kill the ones that fail to save. So you just remove them from the board and you don't have to deal with hit points. And then you can pool hit points together. So if you have a bunch of skeletons, let's see, let's pull up, I'll go over here to my little chart. I got a D&D Beyond, and we pull up a skeleton. Let's say you're getting attacked by a whole ton of skeletons. You can pool their hit points together. So skeletons have 13 hit points. We're going to round that up to 15, right? So let's say there are 10 skeletons. That means they have 100, and the pool has 150 hit points. And every time that pool takes 15 points of damage, a skeleton dies, right? And you can sort of pluck them all out. If they're fireballed, which is going to happen, you would look at how many were in that fireball, and then you'd apply the damage to those that were done the fireball. If they're killed outright, you remove them plus their 15 hit points from the pool and remove them completely. Otherwise, if they survive, then you apply the damage that they would have taken to the pool and remove more as they die. So it's a fast way to run a lot of monsters. The mistake I made was running 2 different kinds of monsters in a huge horde. So I had a whole bunch of thugs. I think it was like 18 thugs and 18 sea spawns, right? And now I've got 2 different pools. He's not your problem says, or watches the cleric turns all those skeletons. Yeah, so that's an easy one, right? The great thing is you say the cleric goes up and turns undead on a whole bunch of skeletons. You say, how many skeletons are within turn undead? You might say 12 of 16 skeletons. There's a few on the outer fringes that aren't hit by the turn undead, but all the 12 are hit. And of those 12, how many succeed? You say 3. So 9 of the 12 are turned and probably turned to dust, right? And break apart. So immediately the cleric casts it, bang, 9 of them die. I didn't roll a die, right? And I didn't look up anything on a table. I just did it, right? And if the cleric is really powerful, maybe they get all of them, or maybe they get, only 1 or 2 of them survive. You get to pick that. So it's a real easy way to kind of to adjudicate large numbers of monsters in your head against a bunch of characters. But don't try to do it with multiple types of monsters. So don't have, 50 skeletons and 25 zombies, because now you got 2 different pools that you have to manage, 2 different hit point pools. 2 different sets. It's a chore, right? And what I found was that trying to figure, especially when they're mixed up together, so you're like, how many skeletons and how many zombies are inside of the area of effect of a turn undead? Oh my God, what a hassle, right? So instead, when you're throwing a horde, you could just pick one, right? Either skeletons or zombies, or just choose a stat block for one or the other and call them all the same thing. So what I should have done is said, I'm going to use C-spawn stat blocks. But I'm going to flavor them in description and say some of them are more humanoid than others. So sea spawns are typically all aquatic. They're like humans that have turned into they're humans that have turned into sea people, right? They look like that. And I could just use this stat block, right? Which is pretty hard, by the way. Challenge 1's, 36 challenge 1 creatures is pretty tough. An easier way might just be pick the thugs, right? So in fact, I probably, if I think about it, that's what I would rather do, because I'd rather have more monsters that are weaker than less monsters that are more powerful. My whole point was they're getting ambushed by, or not even ambushed, they're getting jumped by a whole bunch. By the way, I love the thug stat block. It's like my favorite stat block. So we can just use this one, right? They have pack tactics. They get 2 attacks. They have, +4 to hit, 5 damage. We can flavor up this damage so that 5 damage could be claws and bites and other things. It doesn't have to just be bashing. They have 32 hit points and 11 AC. So we round the hit points down to 30 just to make our lives easier, right? And if there's 32 of them, what is that, 90, math is hard, 96? So I think 960. So the pool would have 960 hit points in it for all 32 thugs. I think that's right. That sounds right. Is that right? 36 thugs, 960 hit points. So you have this big pool. Thugs have a lot of hit points. That's a problem. But when they take lots of damage, when they get fireballed, they're gonna take a ton of damage, and a bunch of these thugs are gonna get wiped out by that stuff. So you might even say if they fail a saving throw on fireball, even though it's 30, we're just gonna say 28. We'll round up and then wipe out all the thugs that failed their save to make your life easy. But boy, I wish I had picked one stat block for all of them, because then I don't care. I'm applying the damage to the pool for all of them. It's easy to do. I don't have to do like how many saved here and how many are of the C spawn, because they had different sets of hit points. That meant more C spawn would be alive after getting fireballed than thugs, right? So it could be really hard. So mixing hordes, I don't recommend. I recommend picking one stat block and reflavor it. So you could still say some of these are C spawn like creatures, some of these are more humanoid. Doesn't matter. You just use the same stat block and the same hit points for all of them anyway, and then you don't have to worry about how many of one or the other. Because that's just a hassle. Now you can throw, if you want to mix up your battle so it's not just one type of monster, period, and you want to have other things like deep scions in there. Maybe there's 4 deep scions that are also attacking with the group. And in this case, I did. Like a deep scion, you're not going to put him in the horde. And you would treat them like a normal monster. You don't pool their hit points. You don't mix them up with the horde. You just treat them as an individual monster and handle them like you would normally handle combat. So that way you can have like 4 deep scions. You could have a Kraken Priest if you wanted. Let's say Mr. Dory was alive. In my case, I reskinned an octopus, right? Giant octopus. Spelling is hard. So I had a giant octopus. Mr. Dory's body turned into a giant octopus, right? And that was cool and fun. And they were freaking out by that. So I had like deep scions that they had to deal with. I had a giant octopus that they're dealing with, and I had a bunch of bad guys. But I just wish I had used the thug stat block and reskinned it to be both thugs and deep scions, or C-spawn. It would have been way easier. So that was the big fight. Then the characters went down into if anybody in chat, is there any part of that could use a little bit more clarification? I think I'm going to write a whole article about how to run large numbers of monsters that will describe all of this, because it is one of my favorite things to do. It's a favorite thing to do that I don't think is done very often, because people feel like the way that 5th edition works is that you can't really run large numbers of monsters. And the answer is you can. Pool the hit points, assume 1/4 succeed or fail on a hit, and you're all set. And then adjudicate areas of effect. So one thing that made that battle really interesting was the characters knew that they were getting jumped by like 36 guys, and they blocked the doorways, which meant they couldn't be attacked by more than 2 or 3 at a time. And it meant that they weren't getting attacked by 16 guys. They were only getting attacked by 3. And in that case, I just rolled the attacks like normal. I said, 3 attacks by you, 3 attacks by you, 3 attacks by you. And I would roll, and they didn't take hardly any damage. So they had the meat shields, the paladins and the fighters blocking the doorways and windows to make sure that the hordes couldn't get in. And then they were dropping like Evard's Black Tentacles, and they were dropping Shatters, these other really big areas of effect. And because the situation was that all of these guys are like crazy fanatics of Mr. Dory, so they are piling up against that window. They're not spread out tactically. They're rushing in. They're roaring in. So when they're hit with Shatter, it meant the Shatter hit a lot of them. It meant Evard's Black Tentacles hit a lot of them. It meant they would run into the Evard's Black Tentacles to try to get to the body of Mr. Dory. So that chaos meant they could hit a lot more of them with an area of effect, which meant that it was not uncommon that if I said, 12 of them, if I broke it up into 36 and I said there's essentially 12 coming in the front door, 12 coming in the big bay window, and 12 coming in from the back. And it meant like their Evard Black Tentacle hit all 12, right? And then of the 12, 9 of them failed their saving throws and took a bunch of damage and were restrained. And then if the characters said, I want to hit one of the ones that's restrained, then you just apply that as though they have advantage on the attack. It was easy to do. The Shatter would hit a whole bunch of them. And so like 2 or 3 areas of effect wiped out those groups. And yet those groups could not effectively attack the characters either because of the good tactics, right? Like, let's have our meat shields block the doors and the windows, and let's have our areas of effect guy hit them with areas of effect. Perfect, right? And in my feeling for it, it felt like that crazy 88 fight, right? It felt like the doors are just bursting open and you hear the thundering of their feet as they're running across the floor as the back door of the place bursts open and a dozen guys come running in the back. It was really cool, and it could have been fun. It was fun. So I really like those big battles. Take a look on Sly Flourish for an article where I talk about this, or you can use the Lazy DM workbook guidelines here, talk about how to run this large number of monsters. And I think that this works just as well, but you can essentially replace this first part, subtracting the monster's attack modifier from the defender's AC and consult the results column. You can do this. If you want to be real specific, you can do it. Or you can be fast and loose and focus on the story and say a quarter of them hit or fail. Round up if the person they're hitting or saving against is particularly good. Round down if they're normal or not. And yeah, that can work really well. Snark Knight says, did the players feel your pain? They felt my pain. They knew when I was like writing out 6, because I broke them into 3 different groups. So I actually used 3 different pools of hit points, the back guys, the front door guys, and the window guys. And I used different pools of hit points for each. And then I had a bunch of Sea-Spawn and a bunch of pirates in each of those groups, which meant there were 6 different pools of hit points. That was complicated. And they saw that it was complicated. And they saw me trying to figure out, like, if you hit them with Shatter, I think I used bandits. I didn't use thugs. But I had to like figure out how many of the Sea-Spawn got hit and then how much damage the Sea-Spawn took and then how many Sea-Spawn would die because of that compared to the other ones, which were pirates, which I just used the bandit stat block. So if I had just reskinned them as one, it would have been way easier. So they did see that pain. They didn't feel the pain because they just said, here's what I want to do. And then I would figure out the math to adjudicate it. And I can do math like this in my head relatively easily. So I don't think it bogged it down a little bit. It probably took away from the excitement of getting these big piles of guys attacking. That probably was a bit, a bit much. And it would have been way easier if I just, it's way easier for me to do it with just one kind of monster. And then the thing is you can reskin all the time in your head. So the fact that some of them are sea people and some of them are pirates, just call them sea people and pirates and describe them as such, right? Say some of them are green skin and iron-like teeth and they look like sea spawns. The other ones look like pirates where like their skin's getting translucent and their eyes are getting buggy, but they haven't turned into pirates and they're fighting with like weird hooks and stuff. So you can reskin all over the place and describe every one of the guys that they're fighting could have like little individual quirks. You don't really have to describe them all, but you might, like, for fun, they're standing at the window holding a shield and like one of them reaches over and he's got like no teeth and he's got this weird swirling tattoo around one eye and his other eye is dead, right? Or, and he's got a big rusty hook and he's trying to hit you with his rusty hook. You can describe like each one, sort of like a zombie movie, right? Like zombies are pouring in, but every zombie's got like a little interesting trait. You can describe it that way and it works really well. So that worked really well. They went down into the cellars. They found out that there was a secret cellar and they went down there and they knew that they were looking for, I think, is this the right game? Yeah, this is the right one. They went down there and they found the daughter of Ilendar Fireborn, one of the council members of Saltmarsh, had been converted and was talking about how the transformation was coming and it'd be great, come and join the transformation. And they were in this weird cavern underneath that had an old altar, and there were these deep pools in there, and scum came out of the pools. These are monsters that are inside. These are good sort of replacements for chewels, right? If you want to mix up your monsters, and aboleths often have chewels that support them, you could also have these guys, which are kind of like, this is sort of the far conversion of the furthest conversion of a creature from an aboleth, and they get 3 attacks, 2 with a trident. I don't know why they fight with a trident. The art doesn't have a trident, so you might just make claw attacks. And they're kind of twisted by aboleths. Good amount of hit points, relatively low AC. And they have that mind-breaking touch where they can touch you, and if they hit you, they do 18 psychic damage and disadvantage and wisdom saving throws. These are good ones to protect a aboleth. So you could figure that out with You can figure it out with Jewel. Beamer88 says, are your books only on Amazon or are they on your website as well? They are. Thank you for asking. They are on my website. If you go to Sly Flourish, all of these links to my books over here go to my individual books. So if you want to go to Lazy DM Workbook, here it is. You can buy it on a bunch of different places, including Amazon, including other ones. You can buy it directly from me, and you'll just get the PDF. You pay through PayPal, and you get the PDF sent right to you. So those are all the books are off of the websites. Let's see. Yeah, so they went down there. They fought some scum. They, again, sort of blocked the door. They knew bad things were going to happen, so they blocked the door, and they were able to take these guys out without too much difficulty. A pair of these guys. It wasn't really that hard to fight. So the beginning of the session is going to start in that chamber. So let's jump over to our notes. So we have, let's see, I did not prep these notes. This is the Styes part 3. And I think I put the newsletter in here, didn't I? Did I put the newsletter? Yeah, join. Subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter. So characters, the Killer Whalers, and now we have, so James's character is not here today. Thurvin, I believe, is back today, and we have another mystery character who's my friend Joe, who's coming in from out of town and playing. So I might have 7 players today, which is going to be kind of crazy. So we have Mac, who is played by Jerry, a Goliath Grave Cleric and smuggler from Monmerg. He has a red skull tattoo on his head, and he gave his blood over to Zolek. He is a Grave Domain Cleric. We have Bless Sunspire, human paladin of Procan. She was Emo Bleth when she was touched by the Black Death, but then she also was possessed by an intelligent intelligent blade called Sunspire. Skylar is Brian, an Aarakocra Storm Cleric, loves flying over things and blowing them up, hates the water, and finds his way there, as he has a magic shield. Corvel, played by Joe, is a human fighter fisher who got knocked in the head and now believes in a god called Zagig, and I was just proselytizing Zagig. He died and spent 10 years in purgatory, came back with a rotted hand, and he's the wielder of Thorazadun, an ore, a magical ore that is wrapped in weird metal from the realm of Thorazadun. We have Dave, played by Jay, a Triton monk and fisher who saved Corvel during a fishing expedition in which Corvel wasn't really killed. He has a sister who was a warlock of the Change God, but is now recovering from it and became an acolyte of Procan. Thurvin Pat, a half sea elf storm sorcerer who hates Zolek very much. So our strong start, we're beginning in a chamber beneath Mr. Dory's manor. Starting with combat is always good, but I started yesterday with them getting attacked by 36 creatures, 36 guys. So I don't know that that's the case. Deep pools into the tunnel, into the submerged tunnels below the Styes. So there's a whole network of old submerged tunnels that exist underneath the Styes, and they are very old and tied to the aboleth. So one thing could be that one of the characters gets a vision. Like if anybody touches anything, the altar or the walls or anything like that, they could get a vision from the aboleth. The aboleth, I think, has a name. Skogath. Skothka. That's a hard name. I think we're gonna Sogath. Let's go with a name I can pronounce. So they get a vision from Skogath, and the vision is of probably the forming of the rift, right? Vision of the Endless Nadir and the Great Rift. The rift is like a hole that opened up in the ground. So how, if we go back, like this, when did this hole form? Like what, how did the aboleths create the hole? Did the hole form on its own? What opened up the rift in the endless nadir? And it probably would have started many, many centuries ago and then grew over time. What would have done it? Some kind of artifact that they had? Like a dagger? Maybe there's a dagger that they used. We're going to go with that. A vision of 3 aboleths and their tool. Let's see. They probably have a bunch of merfolk, right? A merfolk priest uses a black-bladed dagger to draw a strange symbol in the ground. The symbol is found on an alien rock, right? So this would give them a vision of like what happened in the endless nadir that brought Tharizdun to the world. This also works into some secrets, right? Aboleth found a meteorite with a symbol of Tharizdun on it. The Aboleths used a dagger to pierce the world and open a rift to Tharizdun's realm. Those are a couple of secrets. He's Not Your Problem says, in Descent into Avernus, an abyssal portal is created by desecrating a special place of prayer. Yeah, the Aboleths don't have a place of prayer, and they were here before anybody did. So, I think that it works better that if they do this in their area, they sort of create a place. But I think the desecration occurs, and they use this dagger that's made from the same metal that now they're using for the ore that Tharizdun has. I think that could work. I'm gonna block my coughing. I don't know if it's working. What else? Oh, so I think that getting that vision, this could potentially result in madness. I'm gonna have to figure out how many, how the other players got here. Really, just the one. But he could be an investigator. I'm not sure. We'll have to find out more about him. A little tiny speck in my throat. What else? So that's, I think that's a fine, strong start. Not everything has to be a fight. So they have to choose a path, right? Find the caves to the altar. Out above water, right? Or head through the submerged tunnels. It's the idea that there's like vast arrays of tunnels down below. And that might require us digging into some fantastic locations. So I think we might do some there. And that's really where, scene-wise, we're not going to worry too much. I think that's kind of where they're going to end up. So we'll jump straight to secrets and clues. We've got a couple. What are some other clues here in the city? the council used the asylum as a prison and den of execution. Right, that's how they got rid of people. The tunnels beneath the Styes are vast and very old. Sogoth. How about Sogoth? Sogoth. That's pretty good. 3 aboleths. Let's see. Sogoth broke away. From his aboleth, quorum? Sogoth is the oldest. He is the oldest priest of Tharizdun in the world. Maybe not the most powerful, but certainly the oldest. Because he could be 100,000 years old. Let's see. The rift. The rift grew slowly over many centuries, but now grows quickly. So it does like this exponential, this exponential growth. And now it will soon devour the seas. It will overtake the land and eat the planet, kind of pull Tharizdun's realm into here. The cult always had in the Styes, but the sea princes at bay. The cult of Tharizdun always had purchase in the Styes, but the sea princes kept it at bay. With them gone, it took over the people. Other interesting things that they could find. So they know that they have to go out there. What other? There are aboleths who want the rift closed as well. So potential allies. This is more like it with the meteor crashing into ancient Derry. Yeah, it is like that, which I think is kind of cool. I think, you can always, if you ever have a question like why the hell such crazy alien stuff showed up, meteor works well. What else? I think the aboleths fled from the Endless Nadir and the Sea Elves took it over. Is that what I had? The aboleths fled the Endless Nadir, and the Sea Elves took it over. The Sea Elves left the Endless Nadir when its corruption became too great. They couldn't contain the whole. I want to do the Tamarat, right? So the captain of the Tamarat worshipped Tharizdun. On when the Sea Princes fell. When the Sea Princes fell, the Tamarat sought out the Endless Nadir. That leads us into the next and final adventure. So we have some good solid secrets and clues here. I think that those are fine. I think that gives enough information This is kind of the part of a campaign where all the stories are sort of coming back in again. So we're all sort of ending in the same place. You've got a crazy island with a crazy monolith on it. You've got a great rift underneath the ground that's part of an abolithic city. You have a crazy warlock whale swimming out there, and you have a bunch of pirates, right? So it all is kind of leading back to that thing. NPCs, we have Mr. Dory, who is dead, and he's really dead this time. We have Sogoth, the abolithic high priest of Tharzadun. Rephraim, who was the priest of Weejoss and friend of Loveridge's, doesn't believe that Jarm committed the murders. That's probably not going to matter too much. We have Fireborn. What was her name? Illendar Fireborn, but his daughter. And I hope somebody wrote her name down, because I didn't. Daughter of Illendar, possessed by Sogoth, or Thrall of Sogoth. Persephone, that sounds right. It's great that you can remember names. Did I not write it down? I didn't. Wow. Well, I did now. Good for you. Thank you for remembering that. He's not your problem. It's Persephone Fireborn, Thrall of Sogoth. And then we have these other guys, but we don't have to worry about that. Oh, Scarron will probably get involved at some point. I think he asked for... I don't know how he would approach the characters. Scarron is the uncle. He's actually the sage, right? And he is a member of the Scarlet Brotherhood, but he is the one that actually has secret knowledge about Zolek. He knows where Zolek sleeps. He has Granny Nightshade's soul bag, which can capture Zolek's soul if he is defeated. And he's willing to give that up. I think we figured that out a while ago. Most of the other stuff here we don't have to worry about, and we're probably not going to worry about. We have crew members. We have council members. We have people of Saltmarsh, and then we have sort of our, I guess this is people of the Styes. Yeah, I don't think we need any more. Hey, Jen from Pixelscapes is here. Hi, Jen. I don't think we need more NPCs. We're good on NPCs, but we definitely need some fantastic locations. So we have, and this is where I was pulling up. I think we're going to steal some of my locations. Well, I don't know. I mean, don't save your good stuff. But I thought about using. I have like an abolithic temple in Ruins of the Grendleroot, and I'm thinking of using that abolithic temple as a. But it might be easier to save that for the Endless Nadir, right? That this could fit well for like the areas of the Endless Nadir. So maybe I'll hang on to this. And instead, what do we need? So we have a temple. We have a temple to Tharzadun. We have winding waterways. We have, I don't really have to do, I'll do it anyway. Mr. Dory's. Mr. Dory's altar. What other interesting... So if they're exploring a bunch of tunnels that are leading to a bunch of different places, well, we have the Asylum Cellars. That would be kind of interesting. What other... a sunken... What kind of... What a sunken vessel? What if it was a spelljammer? Right? Strange. Sunken vessel. Strange configuration. Arcane sails. Flooded ossuary. That's a good idea. So what if like, yeah, I actually put one of these in Vault of the Dracolich a million years ago, that the inside the middle of the mountain was a spelljammer that had crashed. Elemental engine. That would be kind of a neat thing to find. So Mr. Dory's altar is easy. So there's a old so when we're developing fantastic locations for our own game, we don't have to fill them out like they are filled out in we don't have to fill them out like they're filled out in the books that I write. You know, so if you look at like Ruins of the Grendleroot here, let's jump over real quick. You'll notice that like location, let's pick one. So we'll pick Chul because it's got like stuff. So you've got the locations, and the locations have like area aspects and then some read aloud text and then a general description. You don't have to write all of this out for your own game. Instead, you can, all you really need are the aspects. And to me, like building a location for that you're using in your own game doesn't really mean much more than naming it and giving it some interesting aspects. What is an ossuary? Is that where yeah, so it's like a crypt, right? That would be interesting. A pirate crypt? Ooh, I like a pirate crypt. Could even have some of them attack. Crypt of Dead Pirates. Old pirate treasures. And they're left here because, you know, people that swim down there don't matter. And a half ship mast, right? We could pick let's pick an interesting monument for our ship mast. A goblinoid mausoleum, dwarven obelisk, clockwork fountain. Trying to think what would be cool. An orc. You know, like how about a demon? We'll do a demonic shipmast. With a demon soul inside. Hey, that's fun. Ancient carved waterways. Alien text. Carved into the walls. What other things might they find down here? Twisted bones. Half humanoid bones. And then the Temple to Tharzadun. This is the actual temple where it comes up above water again. And this has like an ancient obelisk. Sort of a same sort of obelisk that is found on the island, just a smaller version of it. We have muddy walls, thick That's where the Chules hang out. And a cliffside overhang. What are those called? Cliffside overhang. Got something on my eye. Ow. That hurts. Precipice. Yeah. Yeah. We could probably have some other... trying to think if there's other interesting things. Maybe not. Maybe that's okay. We got that already. Yeah, we were going to use this map, right? Let's take a look at that map again. I think yeah. This is pretty good. I think we're still going to use this map. Oh, hang on. Let me show it. It drops that. Whoops. Another window. Oh, come on. So this map, I think, is a good one. I think I printed it before, but I think I threw it away. I'm going to print it again. Always nice to have a map on hand that's kind of easy to fill out. And this could have some of his Sogoth's, things where he worships Tharzanun could work well in there. So I think that's okay. I'm pretty sure I can fill that out. Do I need anything more? It's got some interesting stuff. Oh, look at that. I printed it the wrong way. Stupid me. That'll probably work anyway. It's pretty cool. So a lot of the monsters that I chose, I still have, except I forgot the Aboleth. And it's an Aboleth priest, so I'm going to give it priest spells because I'm mean. And it's a worshiper of Tharzanun. Print it. Look at that. Cut the bottom off. Well, whatever. I'll live with that. So I think that will work. So treasure, I'm not really worrying about too much because the characters are already pretty well equipped. At 7th level, they have about 2 or 3 magic items each at this point. So one nice magic item might be cool. I don't know. Let's hit some random magic items and see if there's anything real cool. I tend to like. I love that my bookmarklet. How about I actually bookmark that page? Treasure. This goes to. Oh no. Let's go to. Who is it? Donjon. Donjon has great treasure list. Random treasure generator. And we're going to pick challenge rating 7. And we're going to do treasure hoard. And we take a look at this. It seems to be, is it cutting off? It looks like it's cutting off. Yeah, it is. Sorry. And then you can just keep hitting reload till you find something that's interesting. So, nothing there, nothing there, nothing there, nothing there. Potion of Hill Giant Strength, Dust of Dryness, +1 ammunition. You know what might be better is go to D&D Beyond, go to Sources, Source Books, Dungeon Master's Guide, and let's go over to Treasure, and there's Random Treasure, like that. And we'll just kind of skim through the lists here. For permanent magic item, let's do a powerful one. So we'll jump to table, whatever it is. These are all the high power FG. So let's look at G. Bowl of commanding water elementals would be kind of interesting. What is a time stone? Is that on here? So G is powerful enough. Where are my dice? Here they are. Let's just do some rolls on this and see what comes back. We get like an interesting thing. So 16 is adamantine armor. They already have that. 98. Yikes, that's going to be powerful. 98 is a Wand of the War Mage +2. That's not bad. Because one of the characters is a sorcerer, and I don't think he's got much. So a +2 Wand of the War Mage would be pretty great. He would enjoy. I think he would enjoy that. Apparatus of Qualish. That's not bad either. The apparatus, because maybe it's sunken down there, right? That'd be pretty cool. Did they get one of those already? I don't think they did. That's certainly not in this game. So I think we'll throw a Wand of the War Mage because I'm pretty sure my friend Pat has not received. And an apparatus. That might be a good one because they could take that to the Endless Nadir. That'd be sort of a fun thing for them. So I think that's some good treasure. I wouldn't mind having another, since we've got a little bit of time, another couple of interesting chambers in the Temple of Tharizdun. So one of them would be, what's his name? Zoloft? Not Zoloft. Sogoth. Sogoth's meditation chamber. And it has perfectly spherical walls. And what happens in there? What would happen to sound underwater in a perfectly spherical chamber? No sound? I'll just say no sound. No sound at all. Hear your own doing their work. I've heard of chambers that I guess they test cell phones in, and they're so acoustically protected that you can hear your own blood running through your veins. Like you know, all sound is removed. Water carries sound better than air, yes, but what would it do inside a spherical chamber? Would be kind of interesting. I don't know what sound in water would do. And I think it would be super loud, right? Because the water would carry it. And then Sogoth's library, which are like large stone tablets. Tiny. It would echo a lot, yeah. Large stone tablets written with tiny glyphs. Ancient glyphs. Strange arcane. Be like stone, like cylinders. Would take lifetimes to decipher. That's a good one. What else? What if you were an aboleth priest of Tharizdun and you wanted a lair? What would you have in your lair? You'd have a place to meditate upon your crazy connection to Tharizdun. You'd have a map of the seabed, right? So the map room. Impossible geometry. Map room would be good. What else? Any other kind of interesting thing in the map room? Glowing crystal. There's the question of the other two aboleths and where they are. And what if there were 3 aboleths, and maybe for the first time, Sogoth murdered the other aboleth. So there could be another ossuary, right? Sogoth was its name. Let's pick a different name. Oh, so now we can use that the Nihilith from Tome of Beasts. Somebody in my Discord chat was saying, hey, why don't you use a Nihilith? And that might be a really interesting thing. That it's not, there's a dead aboleth. I need a name. Let's go to links and go to names. Kosoth. Kosoth is a good name. Zombie. It still lives. And sometimes it is under Sogoth. Sogoth controls it. It cannot really fend for itself, but it can talk to the other. It can talk to people. Murdered member of the 3. So that's a good one. All right. Yeah. All right with this. I think the hardest part today is having 7 characters. 7 players is going to be tough. But I'll manage. We'll figure it out. I think I've got a lot of good information. I can always throw... I'm trying to think if there's any other interesting monsters to throw. But I don't think so. I think we're all good. So that all works out. We have a couple minutes. If anybody has a question in Twitch chat on anything we want to talk about, is there any? I can describe another thing that I've been toying with, and I'm writing an article about last night, which is a new. Let's talk about it. I'll do a real quick one here. A new approach towards, and if you've been following me on Twitter, you probably heard about this. The revised encounter building. Yeah, and I'm trying to come up with a cool name for this. So right now we're going to call it point buy encounter building. But I don't think that that's a very good one. And the idea behind point buy encounter building is that, math is a pain in the ass and looking up things on a table is a pain in the ass, but we can figure out point buy pretty easily. So the idea here is you start by saying, okay, I'm choosing monsters, and we'll do an example that fits today's game. I'm choosing monsters that fit the story. So in my story, let's go to the final temple area. And we know that we're going to have an aboleth. We're going to have probably some chul. I don't know how many. And we're probably going to have some sea spawns. And maybe there would be a deep scion. Right? So I know we have all these things. I know that I happen to know these all at the top of my head. I'll have to look them up just because I've been using them for so long. So we have, some group here of, can everybody see this? Do I have this up on the right screen? I do. So the idea is like how many, right? How many should I use? What's deadly? What would wipe out the players, right? If I'm doing this, I know that I'll have some number of these. I know there'll be an aboleth and some jewel and some sea spawns, but how many would be deadly? And so the point buy encounter building system starts by saying choose monsters based on the story and situation. And as you can see, like that seems vague, but the idea is like you're going into an aboleth thing, so what's in there? Well, an aboleth thing is in there. What has he got? He's got Chul protectors, and he's got a bunch of sea spawn that do his work. So He's Not Your Bro says deadly or actually deadly. In this case, it's probably, I don't know. The answer is I don't know, and it all depends upon the power of your characters and how that works out. But for like 7, it's crazy. So let's say I've got 7 7th level characters, right? 7 times 7, which is pretty crazy. I keep hitting save, but I'm not saving this. Dylan says, I said this on Twitter. I know you're flooded with replies. What if for the single monster buy you use the same formula, but if buying a single monster is CR? Yeah, so I'll answer that question. The answer is I think it's easy because it's a vague system. We don't need a lot of fixed rules because it's going to be a goofy anyway. So it's better to just say don't be dumb with it. Right? It's easier to say like don't buy anything too big. Like and that's why I think rule number 1 here accounts for that problem because it doesn't make sense to have like a challenge 15 guy. You'll see when we do this because it's going to be like Tarask level points, right? So gauge deadliness, potential deadliness by comparing half the sum total of character levels or a quarter if they're below 4th level or below 5th level to the sum total of monster CR. Right? That's it. Those are the rules. So in this example, we figure out what the pool is. If we're doing the point buy system, the points are half of the sum total of character levels. 7 times 7 is that 49? Do I have that right? I'm bad at math. 49. Hey, look at me! I can do my math. I remember my math table. So 49. Half of 49 is 24, right? We round down. So your pool is 24. Now, right, where it gets tricky is if like you spend it all on one monster. CR24 is an ancient red dragon. But guess what? We're underwater in an abolithic temple. An ancient red dragon doesn't make sense. So we don't worry about like the fact that you could buy it all on an ancient red dragon. We know there's going to be an aboleth. So the aboleth immediately takes away 10 points, right? If 24 is our starting point, the aboleth is CR10, so that's minus 10. That's 14 left. We're going to throw some chuls in here. We can't quite put 4 because that would be 16. But I bet you with 7, I bet you 4 chuls would still be okay. So, you're gauging it closely. But it essentially tells you that we really can't have, we could have the aboleth, we could, if we want to put a deep scion, which would be 13. And then 2 chuls is another 8. So that's right about correct, right? So we do 2 chuls. Whoops. So that's 10, 13, and 8 is 21. So we're 3 points shy. You could do 3 sea spawns if you wanted. That seems like a complicated fight. And I'm not really crazy about that. And because we're going to be having so many characters there, I'm more likely to do like 4 chuls, which is 16. That would put us at 26, just over the rank of the pool, right? The pool gives us 24 points. We're doing 26 points. And then I'm going to do probably 4 sea spawns, but they're non-combatants. So I don't count them, right? Now, what this did for me is it told me that the deadly-ish range, and again, this is flexible, would be about 24, combined 24 worth of challenge rating of monsters is at the deadly level. If I go higher than that, it could be pretty dangerous. And I'm going a little higher than that by going above 4. But I'm pretty sure my characters can take it. I'm also going to do it in waves where they face the Chewels first and then the Aboleth shows up, and the Sea Spawn are kind of taking care of the Aboleth, but they're sort of non-combatants. They're not really there. They might defend the Aboleth if the Aboleth gets attacked. But the real battle is 1 Aboleth and 4 Chewels, which is 26. So I'm in debt by a couple of points. So I didn't have to do any math, right? Or I did a bunch of math, but I didn't have to look up anything on a chart, right? He's not your problem, so smart. Get the characters' alpha strikes out of the way. Yeah, like I want them to deal with the Chewels first. 4 Chewels coming out of the walls and attacking them is better than, and then they have to deal with the Chewels. And then once the Chewels are arranged, that's when the Aboleth kind of comes out and starts doing its charming and draws them in so it can do tentacle stuff on them. And then they're like, man, I got to break away from this Chewel, but they're probably grappled because Chewels grapple like crazy. So Chewels are tough. And then there's Sea Spawn that are sort of around, but not really. They may get involved if we need them. If they don't, they just sit there and laugh and go, So we'll see. But I can tell by using the pool that this is going to be a very hard fight, right? This goes outside of deadly. So that pool works really well. All you have to remember is that you have the sum total of character levels and compare it to the number of challenge rating. Compare it to the sum total of the monster's challenge ratings. And if the monster challenge ratings are higher, it's probably in the edge of deadly. If they're lower, it's in the hard area. And then you can do it like divide it by half for an easier fight. You don't have to build. The main thing is you start first by kind of figuring out what monsters make sense for this. And then the question is, well, how many are going to be really a big threat? And then you can use this point buy system to figure out if it's going to be a threat without having to look up anything on a table, right? And I think that that's a pretty powerful aid. We were looking, so the areas where it breaks down, at the really high and really low areas, it kind of breaks down. The example is, if I have 24 points, that's 48 thugs, right? Or whatever it is, 72 bandits. Well, 70, and maybe that works, maybe 72 bandits. Like, again, they killed those 36 guys and didn't take any real hard hits. So, 24, a pool of 24 means it's 24 Sea Spawn, but that goes, if you go over to, let's pull it up real quick. If you go over to Kobold Fight Club, everybody's favorite encounter builder, right? And we're going to say level 7 characters. That tells us what our budget is. And then we say unselected source. Oh, where is we'll do another CR1. I'm just gonna for spies have challenge rating 1, as do Sea Spawn. So if you do, what did we say? 24 of these guys. Whoops. Oh, come on. So 24 of these guys, the adjusted total is 14,000 and deadly is 11,000. So that's well into the deadly category. At the same level, 7 7th level characters with a CR of 24 is the equivalent of, if we do an ancient red dragon, right? Immediately, that's a 62,000. I guess the adjusted is 31,000, which is 3 times what it is. So did that work? I don't know why spy showed up there when I don't have a spy. Something's going goofy with here. I think I broke the page. There we go. So that, an ancient red dragon versus 7 7th level characters, it doesn't really work. So that's on the low end, and then the high end, the model doesn't work too well. It probably works better on the low end than it does on the high end. But the answer is don't go out of hand. So that's why Dyson said, what if you put another rule in place that sort of limited the cap, like saying you can't spend more than 3/4 of those points on any single monster. And then he'd say 3/4 of 24, or you shouldn't be any more than double. Don't choose. You can't spend more than double the character's level or half of them on any one monster, and that can kind of work. But it's easier to just say, like, it's a rule of thumb. Don't go crazy with it. don't go crazy with it, and you should be fine. So D&D Beyond has 7 Chewels as a deadly encounter. Let's do Chewels. Well, let's do the encounter I was talking about, right? And let's figure it out. So this is a medium encounter with 1 Chewel. It jumps to deadly with 2 Chewels, right? 12,000 adjusted is 12,150. So that goes up, and then when I throw it up there with 4, it's 15,000. So mine is way harder. 3 would have fit within my area, and that's 13,800 to 11,900. So this one is going it's going outside of deadly, right? On mine. But I'm okay with that, because I know like 7 7th level characters are not going to have a hard time with 3 Chewels and 1 Aboleth. They're gonna eat that thing's lunch. So 4 Chewels, and even then, watch. Yeah, as he's not your problem mentions, watch out for the Alpha Strikes. So anyway, that's something I'm toying with. Again, there'll be another article about this point buy encounter building system. I'm trying to find a better name, although that one might stick. And that idea of like just have the sum total of character levels and compare it to the sum total of monster challenge ratings, and that gives you a quick gauge about how difficult the fight is. Is it in the area of deadly or not? And you only were really worried about like, am I going to wipe out the party with this? Otherwise, buy the baddies. Not bad. The key is that it's not so much about budgeting. And that's why the point buy thing doesn't really work. It's about gauging, right? It's about figuring out if it's going to be deadly. It's not about like, I'm not designing a system here that gives you a budget where you can go buy monsters, which is kind of works, and probably people would be happy with that. But the reality is you're not buying monsters. You're gauging difficulty of an encounter that exists because the story exists, right? The story is what gauges monsters. And then you're just like, yeah, let the story gauge. And now let's just check to see if it's deadly. Right? And that's the trick. And so what's the easiest, fastest way for you to determine it's deadly? The easiest, fastest way is compare the sum total of character levels divided by 2 to the sum total of monster challenge ratings. That's about as easy as I can make it. I have to get going. So thanks to everybody for coming to the chat today. I really appreciate it. A lot of you here today, 44 people. That's awesome. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much. And I will see all of you guys next week. Have a great week.